Okay, we are live. I'm here with John, aka Legolas. We're here to talk about the episode 15, which I had dubbed "It's All Right to Kill These Druids." First off, what'd you think of the session? How'd it go?
I thought it was a fantastic session. I think the rest of the crew did as well.
Okay, cool. What did you like about it?
I mean, we seemed to get a lot done, both in terms of role play and combat. There was a lot of combat in this session.
Yeah, I remember hearing Faendal was like we had at the church, if you remember, we kind of had like that combat thing or whatever where you were trying to dodge like things to not hit clobber. And so we were like, okay, we got to roll like initiative or some sort of deal with that. And then later in the winery, after the game, Josh made the comment that like we have to clean up our combat in terms of um, we were in initiative, then we were out of initiative, then we were back in initiative, then we were. So this game, I was like, okay, we're gonna basically stay in initiative for like entire areas, like working up Yester Hill. Like if enemies are
Yeah,
coming and enemies are being defeated and more enemies are coming, it doesn't make sense to be out of initiative for like 30 seconds, kind of thing, you know?
yeah. It makes perfect sense. I think that is the way to go about it. And I think that the way we fight or the way we handle our encounters is there's especially because we've become the kind of crew that, kills first and shakes awake and asks questions later.
Yeah.
It makes sense to keep the initiative order going for a little bit until everything is truly settled.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody wants to take a turn and do like the next thing, but it was good. We're picking up the pace on like how we do combat and stuff like that. We talked a little bit earlier about like we the D&D time scale for me is like weird in terms of like how things work. Like even being like we talked about being frightened, like being frightened for 1 minute. Is it actually better to do it in like real game time or is it better to do it in like world time? And I think the answer is whatever narratively makes sense kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, I think the problem of doing it like real world time is that like 1 minute is going to be like you're not really going to feel any effects if you don't have at least a turn of
Yeah.
feeling the effect.
Yeah. Yeah, in the case of frightened, I mean, yeah, it makes more sense, but there are some that last like 10 minutes, for example, and it's like, okay, so 10 minutes is 60 turns or it is 10 minutes of real time, like this combat session is over now, so how many turns until this thing is over, like, you know, then it makes sense for it just to be 10 minutes. Like if you have, let's say, a potion that allows you to like stretch your arm, you might be using it to like pull a switch or a lever. Like the fact that it lasts 10 minutes or lasts however long it lasts is irrelevant in some way. um, but anyways, yeah, here's a thing. This is like a thing that I tried to do. So the Yesterhill Druids. Um, okay, well, before we get to the winery, what's your take on what happened at, or before we get to the Yesterhill, what's your take on what happened at the winery? You guys basically bumped into Stanimir.
Yeah, and that was pretty sketchy. I don't think any of us are fully trusting Stanimir at the moment.
Yeah,
He seems pretty chummy with Strahd.
with the big guy. Um, you left without doing anything to the wine in the barrel. I've been watching like the WhatsApp group kind of unfold all of these theories about what is
Yeah.
going on. What's your take on that? Where do you fall on that?
Where do I fall on that?
Yeah, is the wine
Uh,
poisoned? Is it in the barrels poisoned? What's do you guys do you
so I went
even
back. I went back and I watched that whole encounter with the druid who let us know that it was poisoned. Uh, and it's kind of a tough call because on the one hand, there were the open vats that she was poisoning there, and there were four vats. She had four vials, and it seemed like those were the only like the next batch would have been affected. Like after this, now there would be no more wine. But she did actually say, and I think I wrote down the quote itself: "It is done. The wine has been poisoned. There is none left in Barovia." Which, unfortunately for us, does seem like the wine in the carriage may have been pre-poisoned. I think like there's an possible argument to be made that it was, already packaged up to go, and there's no evidence that they got to that wine or the bottled wines or the other barrels,
Yeah.
or if it was just in the fermenting vats, which is what we saw them doing.
Yeah. The other thing is, does anybody recall, or I guess I'm inviting somebody to go back, but I'm not going to do it. What the like? Does anybody know how long the Druids have been at the winery? Even that is a factor. If they had just arrived versus if they've been there for a week, that's a factor, right? Um,
Yeah, which I don't think any of us recall that.
yeah,
If it was stated when we first got there, I don't think any of us paid any attention to that.
yeah, it was stated, but I have to even go back and recall exactly what was stated because for me to say, oh yeah, like I mean, this is the thing about being a DM. There's so much information sometimes that you have to kind of. It's really hard. Have you ever like? It's really hard to describe it. Like as somebody who has a lot more information about what is going on behind the scenes than you guys, I forget sometimes what you know, or
Yeah.
what I've
So
told you, or who told you. Like, so we get to
I,
points in the story where it's like, okay, you should know certain things by now, otherwise I've failed. But some things, like for instance, how long the Druids have been there, like it is stated, but
yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
like there's a sort of way around that. Before I get into that, are you having an issue with your camera right now?
I'm not having an issue. Are you having an issue with my camera?
Yeah, I don't see it at all.
Oh, refresh.
I'll give that a refresh.
Yeah.
Uh, so you're about to lose my camera for a second,
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
I think one of the ways that you could get around that is sort of playing to each character, as it were, like depending on which character you're deciding to talk to and give this information. Okay, yeah, that's better. Uh, yeah, you know what I'm saying? You could theoretically, uh, like Legolas is probably going to have no idea. Legolas doesn't really care. He's just here to get out of here. He's
Yeah.
following the crowd. He
Yeah.
has no idea about the specifics.
Yeah.
But Sachi, even if Joanna, Sachi's player character, uh, doesn't necessarily remember that, as the DM, you could maybe put forth that Sachi remembers, and you could actually say that out loud. It was like, well, Sachi remembers that they've only been here for,
Yes.
and so you can
Yes.
kind of
But it's
keep us a
it's
bit more in
tricky.
line.
Well, yeah, you're right, and it is tricky though for me. I don't want to insert information like, oh, by the way, guys, Sachi remembers this. Like, it's up to you guys to call that information into question. And so maybe there's something that if you guys want to do an intelligence or a perception check, like you can take it and try and remember, for example. Um, but it's hard to present the information because then it's like I'm like tipping my hand. Like when you guys are leaving the winery and I say something like,
Yeah,
"Is there anybody who wants to do anything before you leave? Before Stanimir leaves?" Like that's a hint, right?
yeah.
Um,
We do tend to be sort of like, uh, like dogs on a trail for meat. As soon as we get a
yeah,
smell of something new, it's like that's where we're going. We've lost track of
yeah,
everything we were doing before. It's like, okay, new mission, new area,
yeah,
let's go.
yeah,
And we lose track of like, even though we have already been uh, kind of screwed and hit by the fact that, there are obviously things happening in the background, uh, like the assault on Valakai
yeah.
was a consequence of that. I don't think we've learned our lesson really,
Well,
that things
yeah,
are happening while we're not there and have effects.
yeah. Within reason. Like I'm not an all-seeing whatever. This is like the first campaign and stuff. But
Oh
that
yeah,
that
well, like,
is
but this,
that's Strahd. That's Curse of Strahd. Is that this campaign is very, very modular in that sense. That's what I think sort of sets this one apart. Like a lot of, I haven't run any other campaigns, but like having run this one, this is like super modular and like you can just kind of plug and play and manipulate and like you can just kind of plug and there's like there's all sorts of things like that. But I don't think all of them are like that exactly.
Oh yeah. I mean, like even if it wasn't plug and play, I'm sure other campaigns are gonna have stuff like this, where like say with this poisoning, right? It's like we weren't there, we weren't aware of the consequence, but there are these consequences that happen when we're not around. Uh, it's like we could make it back there, but time will have passed. And I think that's
Well,
kind of what we forget a lot of the time is
well,
that
the other,
time
yeah,
passing.
yeah, time passing. But I mean, like you guys basically, if you put it into context, like you guys have headed. The time it takes a carriage to get to Valakai, for example, is totally like standard, right? Um, or in a sense standard, right? Like he's not necessarily like galloping with the thunder of 1,000, whatever. So like it does take time. But the other thing is, and I don't know if this is considered, like Davian Mardikov's journal is there, and so that says who is expecting what shipments of wine, and that is also handed to you. Uh, like there is a way that like you can manipulate this data into like building narrative. Like you can send this wine to any place. You can, so
Yeah, we didn't even. Yeah,
like,
I guess we just sent it straight to the blue water.
well, you did read the journal, um, but this is kind of like the nature of. I'm gonna pull up the journal now. Like part of
Yeah.
the modularness of Strahd, right? Mardukov journal. Here we are. Yeah, some of these places, I think you guys tried to identify all the places, and I don't know if they were all identified correctly. I forget what you guys said. But, and you can also identify the wine that is in the cart, kind of thing as well, right? So these are all pieces of
Yeah.
some kind of
Right.
deal. So you can, like, for instance, buy some characters off. Like, if this is the last wine, you can theoretically. But the other thing is that, like, the wine is the gem. Essentially, the druids were saying that, or the druids were all angry. They were like, the Mardikovs are using the gem to like produce wine. So now you guys are in the possession of the gem. So there's no wine still, right? Because it has been removed from the winery. So like there's.
Okay. So we haven't completely cleared the mission, as it were.
Well, yeah. The other thing is that I find us as a group, it's like when we end the campaign, there's like a part of us that's like, okay, we got to wind it down, and then there's another part that's like, oh, okay, well, let's just decide what we're all
There's a
doing.
thing to do right now.
Yeah, it's like, no, man, let's just call it. You guys, like the way that I would rather have it is like you guys are standing up on top of the hill. You just pulled that Legolas pulled the gem right out of the chest of that wicker man and friggin' hit the ground. And you guys are kind of like just having a moment there, and then you're like, you get on the rocking horse, and you're like, what do you do? And that's where we leave it. Like, so this is the thing. There are still, like, even though the situation is resolved, it's like you're still at Yesterhill. Presumably, the Druid Elder is going to want to say something to you. Presumably, you know what I mean? Like, you do have to kind of wrap up what is going on. So sometimes it's like we make the snap decision in the end of the session. Okay, we're going back to the here or wherever, and it's like, well, hold
Yeah.
on. Like, let's open the session. Like, it's nighttime. You guys got to take a rest. Presumably, a lot of you are injured, right?
Yeah.
So we jumped the gun right on the last minute, I find, and it's like we have to remind ourselves to like,
That's kind of why, like, I like to end sessions, or I keep trying to be like, let's get like if you haven't noticed in a few sessions, I'm like, okay, let's get somewhere. Like we're ending a session at the end of the night. Like let's just finish off. Let's get somewhere where our characters can be like, okay, we've done this and it's over, so that we can
yeah,
come in and start fresh instead of coming in like right at the tail end of a different mission that we don't remember.
yeah,
Uh, that's generally my hope when I'm like, hey, let's get somewhere. Like
yeah,
let's find a good ending spot instead of just ending like cut and dry.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, the thing is, like, where I'm trying to pull in the framework also of like, how do we, like, what is our pace and where are we going to end up? Like, the winery was intended to end having basically met Strahd and Stanimir, and that sort of event unfolds and closes, and then it's like, okay, what are we doing next? And that is the next one shot. So presumably that means most people are going to go to like Yesterhill. That's like the rational thing to do because they're right beside it, and that's what all that's kind of leading to. So we didn't quite finish the winery, but we were very close. We only did like 20 minutes when we started, half an hour of finishing the winery. Yester Hill is supposed to be like a one shot, right? And we kind of pretty much did it, but the last 20 minutes of like settling things with the,
Yeah,
we didn't
because we
do.
didn't quite finish the winery
Yeah.
before.
But that's just a matter of kind of trying to pull it in and just kind of like we're getting better because like the Durst Manor is also supposed to be one, and that took us like 3 sessions, right? And that's
Well,
fine.
that was early too. That was extra
Yeah.
early too. I think at this point we are no longer at a point where every room we go into we have to completely search everything and every object and
Yeah.
okay, what's this? And like, okay, you searched, now I'll search.
Yeah.
We're getting kind of away from that now, which is good
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, but we're almost hitting the other extreme now, where we're kind of not checking anything. We're caring about any superfluous thing. It's like, what's the mission? Who do we have to kill? And we've gotten pretty bloodthirsty.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's okay. I think like we're finding the rhythm, right? I mean, I know that we're probably like 50 hours or 70 hours into these sessions and stuff like that, but we're finding the rhythm, and so I'm fine with that. But I want to talk about something that you don't even know about, but it's in the past now. So, speaking to characters, as like you said earlier, like Sachi remembers this, Sachi remembers that. So in this game, Sachi picked up the staff of Gulthias.
yes.
What do you know about this guy? Like, did it come across that this is? Well, what do you know about this character? You tell me.
Gulthias?
Yeah.
I mean, from what I picked up, is that like he was some sort of evil vampiric druid who somehow, took over the local druids, was buried under this tree, and the poison that was his soul kind of was picked up by the tree and spread amongst the land and amongst the druids who are so deeply entrenched in the land.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and he appears to just be this old evil druid guy
Yeah.
who we seem to have killed, and I believe the staff of Gulthias exploded.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, okay. So the other side of this is that is not necessarily Sachi's experience at all. So I have a way to play audio, an audio clip of myself
yes,
recorded, right?
yes.
Where did you hear it, or did it glitch out or
No,
something?
you did mention it though.
Okay. Yeah, so Sachi's story, because she's a druid, and also because she picked up the staff of Gulthias, or you guys gave it to her, though it is designed more or less for her to pick it up.
Which is mean because that thing exploded.
Well, here's the thing. So
no
she
purpose
is
but to explode.
no, so she is given this staff, but this staff is an evil staff, and then she is given the blood spear, which is the same thing, but it is from like a warrior. And so whichever weapon she decides to use is kind of like a path of evil, path of good kind of moral choice. But the thing is, so long as she has the Gulthaya staff, as soon as she arrives in the Druid Forest, and this is like homebrew, I'm like, she is going to be put under the spell of this thing. So I am basically like giving you guys a vision of the druids like tearing the flesh of these sacrifices or whatever, and blood's pouring over their head and stuff. She's getting like a wonderful vision of like druids praying and trying to like bring somebody back to life and like heal them. And then the thing is, when you guys are talking to the seer who's in the cave, you guys are getting like the story of this tree and this evil thing that you got to slay or whatever. She's getting the story of Gulthias is like going to save the druids, and the Wicker Man is the only way to stop the Dreadlord, and like this is salvation for the. So she's basically drinking the Kool-Aid, and you guys aren't. But her being a normal person is not role playing that, because I can't explicitly be like, you have to role play this. You know what I mean? So it's really tricky to try and like.
Yeah, because I don't know. So she didn't mention any of that.
Well, this is why I was like, do you guys want to talk about the vision you just saw? Because if you started talking about it, then you would instantly find things that don't line up. But nobody really did want to talk about it. And then the second time,
to the rest of us, it seemed pretty cut and dry.
yeah. but it's like those are invitations that I'm trying to like, but it is hard to
Yeah,
now in the context of it, it is designed so that it doesn't matter ultimately. You're
yeah,
either going to defeat the Wicker Man or he's going to fucking run over to the wherever winery and smash it all and be a monster that just is on the loose or something,
yeah.
right?
And like, well, from a player perspective, I think hearing an instruction like that, like hearing like, do you guys want to talk about this?
Yeah.
Uh, from me, I can't necessarily speak to everybody else, but I feel like they probably feel similar. Is that it seems to us like you would be giving us a hint that there is something in this story that we should probably know more about because we know the kind of DM you are, we know the detail that you put into things and how they branch out and give us information on other things. But because we are the kind of like let's kill everything
Yeah.
characters, it was sort of like, okay, there might be more that we could listen to, and like there might be more that we can. Maybe there is some hidden gems and drifts, but like we're still gonna kill everybody.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
didn't really
it's
put too much credence to it.
no, 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 and
Uh,
it's not something that's like failing. It's totally fine.
oh
I
yeah,
I am also treading the line of like what is enjoyable and what is like not enjoyable and like what is, and you know what I have learned, especially in this session. This is like when we're talking about the freaking like just end it already, stab the fucking thing. It's like narratively like you're building up to a point where it is like going to be like the big friggin' thing and the whole thing's going to collapse and the heroes climb out of the rubble and like all that, but then it's like what happens when people get shit rolls,
yeah.
like it's you want them to feel heroic and smash the friggin' thing into the thing, but when they're rolling shitty, it's like what do you do other
It's
than
it's just what happens. I think like
give the weapon to
there
him.
is I think a very non-zero chance that
Yeah,
not all four of our characters make it to the end of this.
it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Strahd's a tough mother, but you guys are pretty
I mean,
tough.
like we are tough. We're super tough.
Yeah.
But like that's not saving us necessarily all the time from shit rolls and the crazy stuff that's going on. Like Sachi almost died in the last session.
Yeah. Yeah.
We almost lost our druid.
Yeah. Well, what did she? The staff knocked her unconscious, I guess. And what else?
Yeah.
You were pretty close at one point too. It was,
I
yeah, it
also
was good.
got pretty close to death.
Yeah, it was
I'm
good.
still pretty close to death. I have 13 health points.
Is that actually accurate though? Because I think it got buffed up by mistake or something. Because I think I was doing
No.
something. No, that's
I'm
accurate. Yeah.
pretty 13 of 53 is
Yeah.
pretty accurate.
No, I just remember looking at your icon at one point and it was full, and I was like, I thought he was injured, but I think it was just in the different menu I was looking at your thing.
No, yeah, I am quite injured.
Yeah.
It was a dangerous session. It was a dangerous time, dangerous fight.
Yeah.
I was very close to death when I ripped out that gem from this thing's chest.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a few things that I fucked up on, eh? I will admit that I'd like thought about after, and this is where I'm finding one of my weaknesses. One of my weaknesses is remembering active stats. So like Legolas should not be, or Lancelot should not have been digging at the tree while she had the Gulthaya staff. She's not able to command any animals that are like small beasts because they're terrified of this thing, right? So there's like that. There's also like, um, there was another one.
It does make me realize that there might be some reading that we should look into, and that is to how exactly concentration spells work.
Well, concentration spells, it is, as far as I'm aware, is so long as you are not disturbed. So like you're doing it, you're actively doing it. So if
Yeah.
somebody
But
hits
what counts
you,
as a disturbance?
well, if somebody hits you, if somebody like casts a spell on you, if a fucking like dragon flies by your face, like whatever is rational for disturbing you, but generally it works out to be like a combat thing. In other words, like with a lot of the ceremonial stuff of these druids, like trying to summon the Wicker Man, like there's two druids that are actually summoning him, and if they are disturbed, then they fail that round. So
Okay.
so you guys didn't hit any of them because you guys decided to go to the tree, which is actually makes the battle a lot easier, because you're just dealing with the Wicker Man. But yeah, concentration is so long as your concentration is not broken. I'm sure there's a far more
Yeah. So like,
accurate version.
that's another thing that like we haven't necessarily been keeping track of though, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of spells. Nearly all the spells that we throw around are concentration spells.
Yeah.
Like I know that Josh's or Faendal's Hunter's Mark is a
Yeah.
concentration spell. So theoretically, that should disappear.
Well, you know what is the here's a thing. Yeah, some spells require you main concentration in order to keep the magic active. I read about Hunter's Mark. I was like, okay, it's pretty much like a super spam. Like everybody's a Hunter's Mark. So what's the point of it even? Yeah, because you could just do it. It's you do it on a bonus action. Any turn you have a bonus action, or he does. So, anyways, the thing with Hunter's Mark that they say is that you cannot. Some people say you cannot attack any other enemy other than the enemy that is marked. So when you make your Hunter's Mark, if that enemy leaves battle, or like let's say it's a main enemy, like a big tough vampire or something, you are like hunting that guy. Like you can't.
You can't attack the side creatures or
Well,
anything like that.
you can. It's just it's gonna break your mark.
Oh, so you can't go back to
Yeah,
attacking him with the Hunter's
yeah.
Mark. Like
You can, but
that
you
would break
can, yeah,
concentration.
but you can break constant. But you can cast it again in a bonus action, so it's no big deal really. But that's so. This is the thing though. Like some of the I don't know. I'm gonna get like roasted if anybody watches this and talks about how amazing Hunter's Mark is and how I'm just not getting it. But like some of the moves are a little silly sometimes. Old vestiges of moves from different times, I guess. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. So, like reading it now as I'm reading it, uh, if hmm, so if you break concentration, he can't cast it again
I guess.
because it says if the target drops to 0 hit points before the spell ends, which is after 1 hour or when concentration breaks,
Yeah.
then he can use it again as a bonus action on somebody else.
Gotcha.
But if the target runs and its hit points were not brought to 0, I don't think he could cast it again for an hour
Oh. Well, we'll have to look into it.
unless he uses another spell slot.
Yeah. Yeah, that I don't know. But, anyways, we'll have to look into it.
I mean, it's still pretty OP because like depending on how many it's a first level spell, so depending on how many spell slots he has,
Yeah.
it's not like he has that many other spells. So
Yeah. Well, that's true as well. And I think that's kind of like the.
so it's like even if he breaks concentration, he can still use a bonus action to cast this thing again
Yeah.
if he has the spell slots for it.
Yeah. Did you decide what you're going to pick? I heard you rumblings of long swords.
Yeah, I mean, longswords kind of seems like the way to go. Uh,
Yeah.
because I already know that I'm sure you've put in. You mentioned that like you know what we're all trying to get out of the game, and you're building the game
Yeah. To a degree,
sort
yeah.
of to like play up what we want. And I already did that with Warhammers, so I assume that you've put in some stronger, decent Warhammers in the game for Legolas to find or buy or
You had a vision of yourself
holding a cool
wielding a
Warhammer.
hammer between your shoulder blades, yeah. Here,
Yeah,
let me show
so
you this, by the way. Do you see your little guy there?
let me close the things I have open here. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm playing with a macro right now that when you take damage, and depending on the damage you take, you can get bloodied, basically. But I'm just messing around with it. I haven't really done much with it. Anyways, yeah, I don't know where you guys are gonna head in the next
Yeah.
session, but
Well, I guess we're gonna stick around and talk to these druids for a second before heading back to the winery. If
y-
we can get a long rest in there in the meantime, so that Sachi can learn that spell and take care of the wine up there, I think that's probably what our plan's gonna be. I mean, depending on how fucked up Legolas is about to get on this horse.
oh yes, the horse, yes.
Yeah, that's about to be. How powerful is the effect of this horse?
I can't say anything that you your character doesn't know anything right now. You got on the horse and you were basically like, "What do you do?" And then you blacked out. So yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
That's all you know right now. We're starting
Like, is this
session
horse just
16.
somehow like like leaps and bounds more powerful than all of the other Blinsky toys we have found so far?
I don't know what I can. I can't say anything about it.
So yeah, I'll tell you from Legolas's perspective, it's like, okay, this is probably silly. Either it's gonna make horses afraid of me, or it's gonna make me move faster like a real horse. Like I thought it would be
Going
some
through the.
kind of silly transport system based on what the other things did.
Oh goodness.
Uh,
Can you imagine a silly transport system? Yeah, you're gonna ride all the way to Valakai on that little horse. You make it there in half the time. My goodness. All right, well, let's wrap this session up for now. And
yeah,
Legolas is probably gonna start the season or session 16 unconscious. We'll do.
perhaps poison.
Well, we're gonna start with a Constitution saving throw, and then we'll take it from there.
And then, yeah, and he's also perhaps poisoned.
Who
Uh,
knows? Who knows? If he's not, he certainly should be taking some mushrooms or something like that.
I mean, I'm sure he's game for something like that. At this point, Legolas is just down to try whatever.
Yeah.
He's been in this world, but he only has one mushroom potion left.
Some of the party has a few. Anyways,
Just keep feeding Legolas.
Lila and Vasily are supposedly locked up together with the corpse of Irina in Valakai. So at least you guys visited her during the feast and
Yeah,
and
I mean,
got
I
her to
assume that
safety.
they've done something with the corpse by now.
Well, it's like you guys left in the morning and then now is the evening.
Has this only been a day since?
Well, you headed out to the winery. You investigated the winery. I don't know. We don't need to stick to the narrative of what the fuck is going on. I want to get away from how long does it take exactly to do exactly, and just keep it narrative.
I mean, maybe not exactly, but like, has it only been a day since we
A day or
left
two.
Valakai?
A day or two seems about right. Probably 2 days.
That makes it. I mean, in terms of corpse removal, I feel like the extra day
That
makes
makes a difference. Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's like, okay, there was a battle, we had a corpse here for the day. That's one thing. But like, if you wake up the next day and you don't do anything about the corpse,
Yeah.
like, there's a problem.
Well, there's all sorts of magical things in this world that you can do with a corpse, presumably. So maybe somebody has some sort of plan or idea. But, anyways, let's wrap it up for now. Good talk. If anybody out there is watching, hello.
Hi. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and all that.
Oh God. We said it. I never said it. I never said to do those things. I don't want to.
I've said it.
I don't want to. I feel bad. Everybody says it. I guess that's how you have to do it. All right, do it.
I mean, I assume there's a reason for that. I mean, I'd rather not do the crazy pandering either, but
yeah.
Even if I watch videos, if you don't tell me to do it, I'm probably not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I do subscribe to a few, and I don't need to be told, but generally speaking,
I subscribe to a few, but there's a couple that I have subscribed to that like. And a bunch that I watch, like I just watch. I don't necessarily subscribe.
Yeah,
but like
the best subscription is the one you remember in your head. You're like, oh shit, I'm gonna go check out this creator.
Yeah, but like in general, it's like if you don't tell me to, I probably won't.
Yeah, I dig it. All right, cool, man. Good talk. I'll talk to you whenevs.